Okay, now we are live. So,
All right.
hi everyone, this is Evgeny on the line, and I'll be the host for today's MS session, held between promising blockchain platforms. Among our heroes are Credits, Fusion, and Electroneum projects. One might meet,
Hello.
yes, hi guys. So, one might witness that now the interest towards cryptocurrencies and blockchain keeps rising among people. Institutional actors changed their opinion on diametrically opposed as brave announcements are being made by the world's known financial institutions and IT companies. But the topic for today is the social impact of blockchain technology. Let's be honest, as we are going to try to dispel common stereotypes with it, connected with it. We will review both social and technological factors of the new way of storing, tracking, and conducting digital transactions. So, okay, guys, could you introduce yourselves to our viewers? Let's start from the Electroneum. Richard, you have the floor.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thanks for inviting us on. Electroneum is a project, mobile cryptocurrency, make it work on a smartphone, make it easy to get access to, and aim it at the unbanked. So we are a long way into that. We've got some partnerships enabling us to top up airtime and things around the world. So we've got some outlets for crypto, and that's working well. We're in Brazil and South Africa at the moment, more countries to come. And ultimately trying to actually give people that are unbanked the ability to earn a token of value, so the equivalent of money from the developed world is our ultimate goal, which will be out in the final quarter of this year. So that's us in a very small nutshell.
Okay, great. So the next project is Fusion. John, please tell us a little more about the platform.
All right. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be on. Fusion is an open source foundation. We're building digital fabric of finance here, and that sounds all kind of like pitch deck, but really it's down to two things, right? It's really about interoperability of assets, because in order for the DeFi or any kind of financial system to exist, they have to be able to exchange and talk to each other. And the second thing that we do is time value digitization. So for every single asset that you have out there, whether it's a simple thing such as renting your house or some sophisticated financial instruments such as lending or futures, you're really just extracting different time values of your digital asset. So through those two things, we think we will push the industry forward towards that internet of value.
Great. So the final turn is for Credits. So Aryan, could you give an update regarding the project progress?
Of course. My name is Arjen Eikel. I'm representing Credits, of course. The viewers probably know what Credits is, as this is the Credits YouTube channel. I can tell you that we are at the final stage of the development. We are actively inviting developers all over the world to start building, creating decentralized apps on our platform. Credits has been created and designed to be a infrastructure for the execution of smart contracts and decentralized apps to improve current business and to invite new businesses on the platform for faster, more secure, and cheaper in a cheaper way of doing business. That's pretty much what it is.
Wow, so awesome. So we have collected a number of questions from the community. We'd like to review it today. So, and the first question is addressed to Electroneum. It sounds like, is the blockchain technology capable of becoming a driver of change for people? What segments of society can it affect primarily, and how?
Great question. I think all sectors of society, of course, can be affected, but what we're seeing at the moment is really only a tiny elite section of society affected. I think that the speculative nature of cryptocurrencies in this very, very, very early time that we're seeing at the moment is not going to be how this ends up. So a bit like in the maybe 1980s, when really only the elite, sort of super rich people were walking around with a mobile phone and they cost thousands of pounds. And then eventually it was something that became ubiquitous. And I think that cryptocurrencies have the ability to do that, to become a ubiquitous way of transferring your work from person to person. So someone does some work, earns some value, and can move it around. And the first people we see as the first adopters can be the people that have already skipped over some of the other technologies. So when you're looking at the people that we're dealing with in the developing nations, what you tend to find is that they've never bothered running out copper, for instance. So most of Europe and the United States, we've got copper networks all over the place that people have then been delivering broadband on and traditional telephony. And if you're in a developing country, there's no point running copper networks everywhere. So what they've done is they've gone straight into 4G wireless technology and straight into fiber. So they skip things over. And I think that you're going to see the same thing going in some developing countries. We call them unbanked, but why would they even ever need to have a bank if there's a different and a better way to work financially? So I think that the developing nations are going to be a really, really, really key place for cryptocurrency, and certainly that's the market that we're in and understand.
Wow, that's a great point, because right now we can have an analogy with the 1990s in the era of dot-coms. Great. Does anybody has anything to add?
Yeah, to add on to what Richard says, I was at the United Nations just this summer, Blockchain for Impact, and we were discussing exactly how blockchain can impact developing countries, specifically for two reasons. Number one, they're not tied down by the legacy infrastructure that Richard was just talking about. And number two, they can stand to benefit the most because, well, guess what? They're kind of been left out of the economic revolution so far. So we got to reinsert them back into the global economy. And I think the biggest place that we see, point I was making, growth was SDG 8, Sustainable Development Growth number 8 from the United Nations. And we think that the first place that you see blockchain actually making an impact is actually through digital identity. To Richard's points earlier, right? So what's this whole unbanked thing? Well, one of the reasons why people can't actually open a bank account, not only is there no brick and mortar, but people don't actually have an identity. There's no driver's license in this world. And I actually take it for granted. I go to a bank, they ask me for my driver's license, my passport, and electronic bill. Great, I got all three of those. It's pain for me to actually get that. If you go into the South Africa region, maybe some of these refugee camps, people can't even prove who they are. So if you can't prove who you are, how are you supposed to actually get money lent to you? So the first place I think we're seeing big impact is through the identity side. Of course, Richard mentioned banking that follows up right from identity. But the second place that I've also seen is land rights. In the Middle East, let's just say Afghanistan is a good example. A lot of the land rights is actually passed like in a tribal fashion, like the tribal leader says, well, this region to that mountain is mine. That's a pretty good thing, but not very good way of defending your access to those lands as the world modernizes. So I do think blockchain and cryptos put together are going to have an impact on our social fabric.
Well, me personally, I totally agree with you, because I think that this red tape connected with financial institutions it really kills the potential for young entrepreneurs in the developing countries, and some people just lack these opportunities for manifesting themselves. So, any further comments, Aryan?
Well, I had exactly that point on my mind as I was going through this question. It triggered my mind that 10 years ago when Bitcoin started, the first thing that triggered my mind was that was designed as a huge social impact to give the power back to the people and take it away from the big institutions, from big governments, big banks, and you name it. And when I did some research after that, I found out there are 1.7 billion people still without a bank account. And I think that's something that Electroneum uses in their pitch on their website. That's what I read when I was going through your website. And that still, it blew me away that there are still 1.7 billion people in the world without a bank account, no access to money. So I think that blockchain has the potential to give these people access to to money, whether it's crypto or fiat. It's crypto, of course, in this case, but it will be the first step to many more things that they can do. They can start building a life, and exactly what John said. They don't have to learn something or leave an old structure behind. They have no structure, so this is their new beginning.
In a way, it's a blessing. Like, yeah, it's like one good stat that I like to throw around is always like, to your point of the 1.7, what was the number? 1.7 billion? Billion that don't have actual bank accounts, for example. The good news is 70 to 80% already have a mobile phone of some sorts. So they're already plugged in, right? So it's a good way. Not everybody has a smartphone, of course. Some of them are these old Nokia candy bars, but it's still a way to deliver crypto or some form of digital payments into their hands. So that's a very exciting chance for the rest of the world.
It will help also when you add 1.7 billion people to the global economy. It will have a big impact.
Yeah,
I think it's really important there to jump in as well. Say that the people why would the developed world want them to join the global economy? And the answer is they're going to be a cheap resource. They're just as bright as we are, and it would be there's no divide in the intelligence of these people. There's only a divide in their access to economic product and access to great education, etc. So if you can get somebody to come up to speed on something, and they can provide that service to the developed world, they can, funnily enough, provide it cheaper. So the gig economy gets a bit of bad press sometimes in the United States and the UK because people are working perhaps close to or even under the minimum wage of those countries. But if you take US minimum wage, UK minimum wage, and drop that into sub-Saharan Africa or Southeast Asia, a lot of the countries there, India, Bangladesh, you drop this in there, and suddenly people would clamber over themselves to work for half of that money, and they'd be extremely wealthy for doing that. So there's a real need in the developed world as well to make use of those skills, and I think they will.
Yeah.
So, every speaker has made its point, and I think that this blockchain, this is one of the cutting edge technologies that moves in forward with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals designed by the United Nations in the year of 2016. This is really important just to achieve all these digital goals, and as we see, blockchain projects is one of the solutions. So I bet the next question, John, I think you're gonna answer it. Could you share just one moment? What are your thoughts on the low level of institutionalization of blockchain technology today? How would you like to popularize your technology among developers?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a challenge I think every blockchain company is facing, but let's also put into kind of perspective the challenges the industry itself is facing as a whole, right? We were just talking about this before the AMA started, but you have strong regulatory uncertainty already. Kind of that's a big headwind that we have to push against. If there's regulatory uncertainty, enterprises, whether you're a bank or if you're like a Burger King or whatever, you're going to be hesitant to get burned, right? If you're be seen as touching as something that's kind of on the dark side of regulation. So that's going to make people very careful to proceed forward. Number two, to make things a little harder, this is a new technology, so even adoption of the new technology, that always takes time. Like you look back and you say, well, the internet's been around forever, but that took 20, 30 years, right, to slowly become mainstream. Dating myself, when I was in high school, I still had my little modems. It was a luxury to have internet browser, right? In college, slowly but surely, everybody was starting to get on the web. The internet was still like this new thing that I could put information on. In 2006, 7, and 8, companies were slowly starting to open up their own intranets and connect to the cloud. I mean, this is the slow evolution of a cycle. And now you're asking people to take that even bigger leap of faith and say, hey, not only are you going to trust your information in this internet, you're going to share this information. You're going to share value on something called blockchain. Everybody can kind of keep each other in check. You have to trust the counterparty. I mean, this is a lot for people to take in, right? So from regulation and technology standpoint, those are both already very challenging things that we have to work throughout. Not to mention, of course, the perception that are still in people's head, unfortunately, right now. It's like cryptos, Bitcoin, some kind of illegitimate type of activity is still happening. But the good news is that's also slowly starting to turn around. I think a good analogy that I can give is actually personal with my father-in-law. When I started dealing with cryptos just probably late last year, he was like, "You're crazy. Why are you going into that blockchain space?" And then this year, when JP Morgan came out with their JPM coin, he was like at the dinner table, he's like, "Wow, you're ahead of the times. You know, this is really serious and good technology, right?" So that's the kind of perception that's slowly starting to be turned around. And I actually think the adoption of blockchain, while it seems like it's very slow, is actually on par, if not faster than we would have thought. You know, when you look at the product adoption life cycle, I don't know if you're familiar with the book. My favorite book is Crossing the Chasm. They have this product adoption cycle where you've got the early innovators, early adopters, and there's this big gap, right, between the early adopters and kind of like the almost like mainstream adopters. We're in that gap right now. So it feels very challenging, but we're moving to it quite quickly.
Yeah, it's hard not to agree because people have big expectations towards other technologies like big data and artificial intelligence. Everybody expects to get like revenue, to get this positive impact, but we are on the dawn of what is going on right now. So more is coming. Who would like to make a comment?
I think you'll cover it superbly.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges that we face as well is because of the ICOs, people's eyeballs were on this, like, wow, this industry raised billions and billions of dollars and we have yet to see anything for it. I mean, sad to say, a lot of the ICO projects, some of them are well-intentioned, like very smart technology people, but they don't have the financial savvy to hedge out their risks, for example. So they may have raised a couple $100 million, but they overspent, they never hedged their risk. That money's now gone, right? And there's no product to show for it. Versus something like in AI and big data, maybe it raised just as much money, if not more so, and it's evolving even slower. When you think about AI, like how long has machine learning and artificial intelligence been around? Before I was born. Okay, so, and I'm like 40 plus years old. But because it's been kind of developed more in the background, people haven't seen large sums of money just almost like seemingly vaporize, right? So that's kind of another pressure point that we have to deal with as well.
In some cases, actually vaporize.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sad to say.
That seedy side of crypto still is taking its toll on good projects. So it's a shame, but that had to happen, and it happened. I'm sure in every other technology. The .com boom and bust, they were their fair share of those as well. So there's going to be a cull. Now there's 2,500 or whatever blockchain-esque projects on CoinMarketCap, and that will be culled down to a couple of hundred really good projects that are actually doing something over the next few years, in my opinion.
True, and exactly the same happened in the .com time in the early 90s. I agree. But for about your question, the adoption of blockchain technology by big companies, by large institutions, it will happen. It's happening already, but it's all about education of the people in charge, the decision makers, to make people aware of the potential of blockchain technology, what they can do with it, because we're always talking about the technology that's on the back end. That's the back end. Blockchain is the back end technology, but it's more about the front end. What can we do with it? What are we going to improve? What is the social impact of blockchain technology? So there are two sides. I'm on the front side. I'm speaking to a lot of CEOs of big companies also, and financial institutions here in Amsterdam, to educate them, to step by step teach them about the high potential of blockchain technology and what it can do for them, how it can make it their processes run smoother, faster, and cheaper. And that is where credits can play and will play a very important role in this game to educate the world, big financial institutions, but also big companies, about the potential of blockchain technology, and in particular, of course, credits blockchain.
That's a good point. Education takes a long time, right? I mean, you have to slowly.
That's how I started. I started to get people 2 years ago, 3 years ago about blockchain. When the hype started and I saw it coming, I was like, oh, this is not going to end well, because people were jumping in and all these coins were coming up. And I was like, ho. So I started to produce seminars, and people from all bankers, housewives, lawyers, I mean, you name it, young, old people came to those seminars to learn what the hell is going on. What is crypto? What is blockchain? And to be honest, not much has changed until now. The majority, the mass, the everyday people still have no clue what's going on. And they are not the ones that have to adopt the blockchain technology, because they're going to be the end users on the front side, and they will just see a smart interface, and they're going to use an app or whatever, and they have no clue that it's built on blockchain. That's the back end.
Yeah, it's got. You touched on it just a moment ago. Actually, it has to have an economic impact on the corporates for it to really take off. If you've got, I mean, you know, in a major way with corporates. I mean, if it's going to take off with corporates, they're not interested in doing things. Even if you look at some of the CSR projects, the corporate social responsibility projects, largely they're not doing them. And this is probably not true for all corporates. You know, I certainly hope not. But largely they're not doing them because of the social impact that they have. They're doing them because it makes their company look good, which impacts their bottom line because it makes them more money, makes their shareholders happy, or what have you. That's ultimately what their job is, to make their shareholders happy. Which probably means making more money. So as soon as blockchain starts unlocking that, as soon as blockchain starts unlocking the ability to make more money, they'll educate themselves really fast. They will also lobby. You know, you've got lobbyists that are paid by big corporates, but they're not being paid currently to lobby for crypto, because I don't think the money's there yet. But once the corporates realize how much money they can make from this, and I think unlocking that global economy is a big secret to that. So once it happens, it'll happen really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, this already. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I would just want to mention, because you touched something, and I built a little bridge to an app that Credits has built. That's Bonox, where companies they can download the software and they can start creating their own loyalty program. And loyalty programs built on blockchain, built on the Credits blockchain with Bonox, are the app that will be. I think it could be an accelerator for many companies to start blockchain technology for other services.
Yeah, I mean, all these things, like the challenge we have is the switching cost that Richard mentioned earlier is very high for the enterprises. I mean, we can't just do things better or faster. There's still, you have to do it better than faster by like 50 to 70% before people say, okay, let me upgrade all my legacy IT systems, learn about these new things, and move it over here to this world, right? So, you know, until we get that regulatory certainty, until the technology continues to improve, which we're going through right now, and we prove that huge kind of a that economic benefit, then the adoption is just going to be slow, which is, again, why we're in that chasm right now of adoption, right? It's just going to take us some time to get through it.
But anyway, guys, right now we witness how use cases provided by various blockchain projects do work, or how big companies show their interest in the blockchain projects. So the next question is for you, Arjan. So how can you comment the adoption of Bitcoin as a mean of payment in the chain of fast food restaurants, Burger King? Is it an essential application of crypto that the whole community is looking for?
Burger King, I think they stopped accepting Bitcoin soon after they announced. I think it was in Germany. It was not all over the world. It was just one branch or in Germany, and they stopped it for various reasons, of course, because again, I don't know who Richard or John mentioned it earlier. As soon as you as a company tap into crypto, your bank account will probably be closed, frozen, because they want to know what else is going on. And as soon as you tap into crypto, they have no clue. They don't know what to do with it. So back to Bitcoin. I know that what's that restaurant? It's Thuis Bezorgd. I think it's all you can eat or something. Takeaway. The takeaway app in Europe, they accept Bitcoin. That is what I know. I'm not sure why, but I think that they're testing the waters. And to answer your other question, I think Bitcoin, they accept Bitcoin for people to pay for their shopping on this particular website or service. Is that Bitcoin is the only one that's known. It's the first one. It's more or less it's the first one, but accepted by the mass. But I think that the road is being paved at this moment for other cryptocurrencies to be accepted by similar services. What I do know also in Turkey, for instance, there is a restaurant chain that already accepts credits, the CS token. So you can pay with credits in restaurants in Turkey. It's I don't know what the name of the chain. Maybe you know that, Evgeny, but we're moving forward. So Bitcoin, yeah, we know it. That's why people accept it. People pay with Bitcoin. It does not really make sense because it's very slow and it's limited. But they paved the road. Bitcoin paved the road. It started 10 years ago, and now it's up to us to take over.
Yeah, and one of the things I think is a common misconception is that there's this giant fight going on amongst all the cryptos to be a replacement for Bitcoin. And anybody you meet within the crypto community, you guys included, you know, nobody's fighting to replace Bitcoin. The market is absolutely enormous. We're trying to add new functionality within the crypto community, but anybody who was earning ETN, for instance, in the developing world, I would be highly recommending that they were swapping some of their ETN for some Bitcoin. You know, get a portfolio of these things yourselves. Nobody quite knows what the long term, you know, what's it going to be like in a decade. You know, no one can predict 24 months ahead, let alone a decade. But nobody knows. But I certainly wouldn't be saying any of us here are trying to replace a Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as you just mentioned, is quite a slow thing in terms of trying to do something that needs instantaneous verification that the funds are there. You know, if you walk into a shop with a Visa card, you can go bleep and walk out. And with Bitcoin, you're going to have a delay whilst the blockchain confirmations come in, or while it's accepted into a block, 10-minute blocks, of course. Yeah. So you know, it's not going to happen very fast. It's not the perfect medium for instantaneous transactions. For a takeaway order, I think it'd be okay. It's online. You could make the order, and the 10-minute delay is no big problem. But I think you need and there are a few projects now, but Electroneum is instant. You can have instant notification. We've got APIs, and I know there are some people that custody Bitcoin that give an API. So that would be one option. As long as you've got somebody who custodies it and then says, okay, well, we will make sure you get the funds, and then they ring fence it and do the transactions and stuff. But frankly, it just needs to be easy, doesn't it? The consumers need it to be really easy and really instantaneous, and then you're going to start getting more adoption.
Yep, I agree.
So, John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, you hit pretty much all the main points have been covered. Like when I saw the question and I saw the word requirement, you know, maybe I was reading it the right way. It's not a requirement as much as just a validation of store value. It's part of saying, great, Bitcoin is in the crypto world is almost like the developed market, right? People see the store value. Yeah, it might be a bit slow, but I have faith in that. All the other type of things that are happening right now, whether it's even the stable coins that you're seeing come out, that's the emerging market, right? This is what things can become as well. There's new technology, new ways of using it. But as Rich was saying earlier, we're never looking to replace. I wouldn't go out and say, man, Fusion, that's where you should be buying everything, as much as I like to say that, right? It's definitely about Fusion has its use to, you know, as a gas layer to make very efficient transactions, to be a decentralized custody of Bitcoin, for example. That's where it comes into use. If you want to store value, you want to, you know, be something that people have that kind of faith, the hard-earned faith in right now. Well, okay, get yourself some Bitcoin. Right?
Yeah, I like what you just said about custody there, decentralized custody. I think that's just earlier we touched on very quickly, we were talking about corporate adoption, and part of that from an institutional point of view, from a corporate point of view, it is quite hard still to custody in a safe way your crypto assets. Likely that if you have keys of some description, those keys need to be exposed to a member of staff, which is potentially catastrophic. Generally speaking, in the banking terms and in equities terms and bond markets, whilst traders can trade them, they can't run away with them. Whereas in the crypto market, largely people could still run away with those assets. So I think custody is something that definitely needs to be addressed, and I'm excited to hear that John is working on something that's got some breakthrough in custody. That's great.
Yeah, without boring people too much into it, but it is all exactly as you mentioned earlier, right? A network of aligned participants, whether you're going to be a custodian, exchange, investors, where you all participate in custodying the asset. The blockchain provides the custody. The keys themselves are sharded and protected. The generation of the keys are sharded as well. It's quite an exciting technology that we want to kind of introduce to the industry going into the end of 2019.
Yeah, superb. Look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
So the next question is addressed to Richard, just supporting your previous thought. Do you consider using your coin as a mean of payment? What are the advantages of Fusion compared to the Bitcoin, and why should a business use your cryptocurrency?
Well, we sort of covered a little bit about. I think I mean we're a smartphone app. Everything about us works around a smartphone app, which is very, very easy to use. And every time we have a new iteration, it's even easier to use. So it has 20 languages in there, so that people around the world can understand what's going on. You've got instantaneous transfers between people, and it keeps people up to date on what's happening. You've got an instant notification of payments on its way, and then it tells you when it's being processed, when it's going on the blockchain. It keeps you informed. So from a user's point of view, it's very simple. It's very easy to get involved. We drip out these small amounts of ETN to users to get traction and to get huge user numbers on board. And we're doing deals with people around on the basis that actually it is much, much, much easier to use than Bitcoin for somebody who has literally zero technical skills. So that's not to say that other people can't do similar things. I think there's lots of different automobiles out there. I think you could buy a Ford or a VW or whatever. We are going to be one of those in the mix. But largely the market that we're aiming for when we're going in and having meetings with people, largely they've been unapproached by anybody else in this space. So we're sort of standing out on our own, I think, at the moment. I suspect there'll be competitors coming along. Well, we see Libra talking about the unbanked, so perhaps we're going to be seeing Libra come in. I welcome that, by the way. I'm sure everyone here does as well. The more on-ramps and off-ramps there are for people into the crypto market, the better it is for the entire crypto market. So I welcome some competition. I think it keeps everything going forwards and make sure we will stay on our best game.
Great. So, Arjen, do you have anything to add compared to the credits blockchain project? Can credits as a token be used as a means of payment?
Yeah, well, I just mentioned the Turkish restaurant chain. Of course, they use that as a mean of payment already. The CS token has been designed as a mean of payment within the platform for the smart contracts. And that is one. But of course, as a solid company, strong economic company, it can help for people to want to pay with quite a stable coin, which of course that's what we aim for the long term, to have a solid company, and therefore next to it also a stable token, a coin in this case, and that will be giving people trust to want to pay, want to buy, want to pay with the CS token.
So I would like just also to ask you, you've mentioned stable coin, so there is now the whole discussion going on around the project named Libra. In Europe, politicians also think over designing its own stable coin. But but regarding various private cryptocurrencies, do you think that the technical advantages that each project can offer can really outweigh the power of such big corporations? I mean, this is a really a new era that we live in. So, what does exactly you think of the Libra coin? John, do you have
Oh, well, okay.
anything to add?
I have a different view. A Libra coin, I
Mm-hmm.
always, so I'll talk about Libra coin a little bit. It's a double-edged sword. I'm sure we share the same view. Number one, it's good validation that a big corporation like Facebook, again, has decided to take digital currencies and the possibilities of digital currencies seriously, right? Again, it's about that big brand name, JP Morgan and Facebook, like that. That's awareness and faith in this in cryptos as a whole. Now, double-edged sword means it's also not good because now it raises the attention of politicians or maybe regulators, whatever it's going to be. They're going to push back and say, wow, this is a serious thing. It's starting to kind of creep into the old world kind of bastions of money control and whatnot. We got to control this. And maybe regulations always has a tendency to swing to too conservative, right? So we just got to, again, work through that. It might slow down in the near term the adoption of cryptos, but long term, it's still good for the industry as a whole. Now, second thing I like to add on to this is also, whether Libra is the right solution, whether it's some government-backed stablecoin, I really don't know, right? And so at Fusion, we've taken that view of like, I think everybody is building something that can fit into a whole that becomes this huge economy, this huge digital economy, right? What we care about is to make sure that all these assets can talk to each other. So, to your question earlier about whether, our cryptos should be used as a payment, I just want to fall back and say, well, it can be used as a payment, but what's the best crypto that suits that purpose? Maybe it's ETN, maybe it's Euro stablecoin. We really just want to find the best product for the best solution. So that's what Fusion is about.
So that's really a very interesting point. And so, continuing the conversation, John, also would like to ask you, what do you think of blockchain as a subject of study at school, at universities? What should be, what kind of school and student disciplines should be? So, and what papers and theory would you recommend for qualitative studies on end-user adoption of cryptocurrency?
Well, I don't know what papers that I would recommend. I don't think I'm, academic enough. I leave that to the professors in them. But as a whole, I think inclusion of blockchain in higher education is as important as learning any other programming language, right? I mean, we firmly believe this is going to be the future. Why wouldn't we be having classes in academia around how to program on blockchain? What is a smart contract? Just those basic introductions. I mean, to that point, we've partnered with college in Europe where we want to be included. The Fusion protocol is included as a training education for the students. And I will also be in Taiwan kind of giving talks to university students, educating them about blockchain, why it's important. So, of course, this makes it, all this education, to what Arjun was saying earlier, it prepares the next generation to adopt blockchain as natural as they do today for computer programming. When I went to school, I had to learn what was it then? I think it was MS-DOS or Pascal or some crazy thing like that, like really old language. And it was really hard for me to do versus like talk to kids today. I mean, it's natural for them, whether it's like C++ or whether it's Python or something, it's just natural in them because they've been educated. It's no longer this mystery, right? So that next way of adoption is going to accelerate. I think it's quite important.
So, Aryan, what are your thoughts on teaching students of the blockchain technology, of the use of the blockchain technology?
Well, the use of the blockchain technology, you can never start too early. So I would not wait till the higher education. I would start a little lower. But when it comes to what technology, we're still in the experimental phase or in the innovation. It's impossible to teach about a certain technology But we were talking about that earlier, right prior to the AMA. The moment you put a program together, by the time you execute it, you start teaching the kids about this technology, it's outdated. So that doesn't make sense. So I would just want to change the whole educational system and invite the innovators, the proven technologies, and start working with the universities, the educational programs, or the educators, the program makers, and lets them work together and build something that we can educate, so they are in line with what works and what not, but with what works, and they can continue with that. So it needs to be very accurate. That is what I would propose. Start working, universities with companies like credits. Indeed, that was your other question. Could this be like a standard? I think that credits could play a very important role in that.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So, Richard, do you have anything to add regarding the educational
Only
system?
that, once again, back down to adoption. At the moment, if you look at corporate adoption of blockchain and or cryptocurrencies, what you've got to remember is that they have a whole IT department who don't understand blockchain, probably don't understand cryptocurrencies, and the when you look at how cryptocurrency payments are made on a low level, so if you're not dealing with through an API, I mean, Electroneum, we've got an API to specifically for this reason, because as soon as we reached out to the first group of people we wanted to have adopting on embracing crypto, they said, well, how do we accept a payment? And when we started explaining that they have to talk to a node and they have to do this, they have to look in a wallet, but there's confirmations because you could get an orphan block and it could be returned. It just blows people's brains up. And ultimately, you need that education at the bottom end. You need people coming out of university that have got a real firm understanding of the fundamentals of what blockchain can bring, the immutable data storage technology that it is. But it isn't a database. And the first people that we talk to, everyone has got this assumption of what it is, but their IT departments don't know. So if it's very hard to find a member of staff that has that skill, once again, it's a barrier to adoption. Whereas if we have a good level of education coming through, and all these youngsters are coming out with this being just a natural thing, like John said, but it is very much like that. Young coders have come through from a very, very early age with this ability to think in coding terms. If you add blockchain to that mix, then inevitably blockchain will be taken off because they'll be laterally thinking of solutions with blockchain.
That's right.
That's out there.
Start at a young age, not higher education. Start now.
Yeah.
I'm giving my 7-year-old the Rubik's Cube and trying to brainwash them. That's a blockchain. But actually, some countries are recognizing this type of early education as well, like in Singapore. And I have to verify this information, but they have a government program that's kicking off where it's like they will pay for 70% of your school costs if you're majoring in a blockchain, right? So these are the type of countries that will kind of leapfrog ahead because of the government focus on adopting this technology.
Smart, very smart.
Yeah, very much so.
So that's really amazing. Just talking about the time of the end of 2000s. I mean the year of 2009 when the Bitcoin came up. So essentially, it was the technology of geeks. They started to use it, and they never really considered it to be something really essential, that it has future prospects. But then it just occurred like an avalanche, because it really granted us, the blockchain. People saw that something can be really stored in the blockchain, and now yes, I agree with all of you guys that now we witness how this stage of the blockchain adoption ripes, and so we will see the more technologies, we will see the more use cases. And we got numerous questions coming from the community. The one is for Electroneum. So the question is, what is the reason for the large discrepancy between mobile miners and registered users? Could you share some insight on the strategy and how to grow your project to make it mainstream?
Yeah, sure. Well, the first thing is that people come on board and start doing a little bit of, we call it mining. It's a mining simulation. It's an airdrop, just so that we understand we're not getting people's phones to actually mine. Funnily enough, we're thinking about, in fact, I think it's pretty much set in stone now. We're going to change the word mining, because as we've gone out from the pure crypto community into people that have got no idea about cryptocurrency whatsoever, the word mining is totally confusing. I mean, for instance, we've launched in South Africa, and South Africa know exactly what mining is. It's digging a big hole in the ground and pulling things out, and it's got nothing to do with crypto or payments or anything. So we're going to change that through to a reward system. But as somebody rightly pointed out, our mining number in terms of the people that are being given the reward probably hovers around the 200,000 people that are active, whereas we've had 3.5 odd or 3.25 odd million user registrations. Now, realistically, we've probably had 2 million plus real user registrations. You know, the figure at the moment is it's just anything that registers. So 3.25 million, we quote it, but realistically, we know that there's at least 2 million real people in there. Now, we've had there may be more than that. It could be 2.5 million, but we do know we've had quite a lot of bots. Now, we know this because we're constantly protecting the reward that we give away from bots, and we're slashing those accounts. We didn't want to slash the number on the website, but at some stage we will do. So we know absolute numbers from, we've got 500,000 people that regularly use the app, but why don't they press that top up button or the keep mining button? I think the answer is because in most countries around the world, and an awful lot of our users are crypto speculators rather than actual users that are trying to top up their phones. Most places around the world, still, you're only earning 20, 30, 40 cents of ETN a month, and it's not enough value for them to care about doing it. But where we are seeing growth, in Brazil, where we're live and you can top up your phone, we've got 4 big networks that covers 95% of the population of Brazil. You can top up your airtime and data directly from ETN. And in Brazil, we're seeing huge growth. So an awful lot of our miners are now from South Africa, where you can top up your mobile phone, and from Brazil, where you can top up your mobile phone. And we will see, we've got another country, touchwood, shouldn't say this out loud, but I think we've got another country launching next week. And we've got more countries launching throughout the rest of this year. And as we do that, we bring up the rewards to more like the $2 or $3 point for users, where they can actually use it. Once they've used it once, they understand this is a real thing, and they start getting involved in the other things we're going to be bringing online. Very long answer, but ultimately it's because they have to have a use for it. There's no point having something that you can't spend. So we have to get, there's only 2 places in the world so far where you can absolutely guarantee to spend something: South Africa and Brazil, and most of our miners are from there. So that's really the answer in a nutshell, perhaps. Maybe we need to give a more detailed answer out on social or something.
Okay, so great. So the next question is for Fusion. What are the milestones regarding the development of Fusion ecosystem? Next milestones.
All right. So our biggest milestone this year was our launch of Mainnet in June. It seems like so long ago, but it's really only been 2-3 months, right? Our next big milestone is all about taking DCRM, which is our decentralized interoperability and custody solution that I was talking about earlier, live. I want to take that. It's in alpha stage right now. When you think about it, you go to dcrm.network and you'll see a version of it. It'll look like just like a multi-currency wallet where you can hold Bitcoin and Ethereum, but really behind the scenes, we've already created those 2 assets are actually able to exchange with each other, right? So we're going to do our beta launch sometime in the late of Q4. I think that's a big milestone for us to hit. For us to find even the other industry adopters. I'm talking to exchanges. I'm talking to custodians who want to participate in this concept of a decentralized and interoperable kind of custodian network that they can all be part of, right? And you might ask, why would a custodian want to join a decentralized custody kind of network? Well, some of them realize that they all stand to benefit. Like if you put 3 strong custodians all in one network, they can each still implement their own like compliance checks or whatever cold wallet stores and branding that they have. But just like an efficient settlement layer that exists in the bank today, the 3 of them can benefit from each other's holdings, from each other's kind of efficient transfer of assets as well. So that's kind of where we're seeing where I'm seeing quite a bit of interest. Then I think that's it, man. If I can accomplish that in 2020, I'm very happy. To some of the other points we've heard from the community so far, what Fusion's done is a very functional type of release where we say, well, here's the library, here are the possibilities of what's going to happen. But we're starting to wrap up these kind of wide-reaching concepts of time locks into very bite-sized applications that people can use. Right? That's what's going to drive adoption. And that's the good news. Where the Richard and you both were saying, it's like, what can people use? So you're going to see a little bit of small applications that are coming out on the Fusion protocol as well.
So great, awesome. The next question is for credits. What are the main industries in the focus of credits project in terms of business development? Why have you chosen those industries?
Well, that will be the industries where there is a demand for high speed, where they execute high volumes. Think about financial institutions, banking, insurance companies, but also logistics. Think about airlines, railways, motorways, the freight overseas. What else? Gambling and gaming, of course. There is a demand for if they would want to switch to blockchain, it needs to be scalable, it needs to be fast, and needs to be able to execute high volumes. And that is where we aiming for. We aim for those industries because Credits has built, and that was the purpose from the start, to build the most scalable and fastest blockchain out there, and we're on track.
So you have the point. To sum it up, all projects have a lot of in common, and as Richard has mentioned, this blockchain industry is really huge. So there are a lot of actors. So there is a question from the community to all of you guys. Do you consider an opportunity to create blockchain alliance? What do you think about such approach to make technology popular?
I'll jump on that one because my entire life is actually I'm talking to other technology partners, actually protocols, sorry, to form an alliance, right, to move the industry forward. And it's challenging the fact that a lot of the protocols themselves are facing their own pressures to justify the funds that they have raised. So they have to fill, let's say, a product need, and they go, well, let's move forward in an alliance that's quite interesting, an interoperable alliance where we can all talk to each other. It's quite important, but maybe we'll talk about that next year, because right now we have to focus on, getting our products live, right? So I understand the pressure, almost like commercial pressure that each of the projects have. But I'm very interested in reaching out to the likes of the Ethereum alliances, for example, to say, well, what kind of builds can we have? Or which is the Convergence Alliance with Outlier Ventures, for example. Like, these are people who are, let's just try to set aside some time from our busy days. Let's try to build a project together, right? Yep. Very, very excited to, continue to find partners. Maybe it's going to be credits. Maybe it's going to be, ETN. What can we do? It's like one of those 20% of our time. Let's just set aside for a second. Let's just build a really cool thing, right?
And we can learn from the .com era what happened. Yeah. And everybody was trying to do it on their own, but in the end,
right.
Yeah, in the end,
there's no need for what's called the chain maximalism, right? There's no one chain really to rule them all. Each of us have our nuances, our specialties, and together, when we build it, we'll put the right solution there much faster.
Totally agree.
Yep, agreed.
So, Richard, do you agree that the world has become really interconnected, and what is your perspective on creating a new organization that would unite blockchain projects across continents? Is it a really viable idea?
It's totally a viable idea. I think it's a very good idea. I think there's still going to be I think it's going to come after the first culling phase, because I still think there's an awful lot of projects that are still let's say if you looked at the top couple of hundred projects in CoinMarketCap, I think you'll find there are still quite a lot of those projects that are going to deliver absolutely nothing. they're going to run out of funds, or that they're going to lose interest and go off and do something else, or some of them out and out have just literally legged it with the funds, and people are just holding on, hoping that they come back. So I think there's going to be a natural cull out to start with, and then I think the people that are really doing things are going to start bubbling to the top of people's consciousness. And then as that happens, then you're going to start seeing, okay, well, let's start making alliances within areas that make sense. So John, you got some great technology there, and again, same with Credits project, you've got these great bits of tech, and we've changed our blockchain entirely now from where we originally forked off Monero, because we like the way that they had dynamic block sizing. But everybody's trying to do their own thing, and it does make much more sense to say, right, you've developed some fantastic tech that can operate this layer of our technology ourselves, which is exactly what we've seen in all corporate world, right? I mean, if you look at the likes of AWS or Amazon's, they started off as a bookstore, and yet Amazon's web services company is probably right up there, if not the best, certainly in the top 3 cloud providers in the world. And actually, what they've done is they've pretty much wrapped up the sales of that layer of people's business. Why bother having an IT infrastructure team that keeps these servers running and manages that to ensure you've got redundancy, etc., if somebody else can do it? And I think we'll see that in cryptocurrency. Somebody else will be really, really, really good at something, and why on earth would we go and reinvent the wheel if we can help it? So it will happen, but I think we're a little way away from it yet, personally.
Yeah, true. That's exactly what I think. It's going to happen, but first we need to establish ourselves and prove.
The final question is for Arjan. Are there any plans to have stable token on the Credits platform, and will there be development of DeFi capabilities?
What was the question again?
Are there any plans to have stable token on the Credits platform?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, there are. It's crucial for our development. There's not much more I can say about that, but yes.
I guess.
Yeah, earlier when you were talking about that, Arjan, and you said that there's a stable coin coming. I mean, I think that this is something that Electroneum, we have wild swings like pretty much every other cryptocurrency does. And I think there is massively a demand for stable coins in terms of remittance. If you have anything that is remitting from one place to another, you would likely want it to arrive in the same state that it left. So I think that the only time that wouldn't necessarily be true is if you have a stable, stable-ish. If you have an ascending coin, then everybody's really happy. But as soon as nobody cares about 20% accidental gain during their remittance, but everybody would be certainly bothered about a 20% loss during the remittance. So we're going to see more and more stable coins as well, and I'm glad to see that the functionality exists within your platform to produce it.
Yeah, again, and it's like I said, it's very crucial for the development of our ecosystem.
So great. I think it's really hard to deny that this was really an insightful conversation. I appreciate every single one of you, and so I can say that more Emma sessions are coming next. I hope so, and stay tuned, and see you guys.
Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye-bye.